Hi, Coach Cole here, and here I am trying to answer a question from one of my clients, Shoham, and he asked me, Cole, how to play tennis every day without getting injured? How do I play tennis every day without getting injured? And I thought that would lead into another kind of alternative like heading for this quick video, and that is what stupid things can ensure that I do get injured? What are the most stupid things that happen on a court that would injure somebody, and how could you get injured from them? So let me just explain some of them on each of the different things. The first one to definitely get injured is if you're practicing serving for longer than 20 minutes in a shot, and it's new and it's a new style, and you're trying to formulate this new technique into your body, and you're trying to serve as hard as possible. A lot of the muscles are holding the shape of the swing in place while you're trying to push this racket through the swing. And so the muscles are acting antagonistic towards each other and causes a lot of problems. And they fight against each other, and doing a lot of movement through that definitely can hurt you. So very often it would be better for you to do like a serving sandwich, where you do 20 minutes of serving in the beginning of the lesson, do everything else, and then go back to a few more serves. That way you just break it up a bit. Okay. Also, another thing, don't just do hard serve, hard serve, hard serve. Break it up a bit. In fact, if a tennis pro says, hey, let's do an hour serving lesson, be very careful. That's all I'm saying. Next, serve as hard as possible from the start when you're playing tennis. If you try and serve as hard as possible, believe me, the body, the shoulder muscles, they're not warmed up. You can really cause some damage. Okay. Don't be silly. Please warm up slowly. Okay. Next thing. If you play tennis and you leave some balls on the court and they say, no way, I can see it, don't worry, I would never step on it. You don't know. When you're chasing a tennis ball on a court, you become blind to other balls, and you become blind to other things on the court, and accidentally you can step on a ball. I've done that, and it's caused damage. I had a bad sprain for a lot of months, and the negative is you have this injury that could flare up anytime, because now there's a little bit of a weakness. So make sure you also do a good rehab job if ever that's the case. Another thing too is if you don't communicate on a court. So if you don't talk at all, and very often that's when somebody's not saying mine, and you have a lot of clanging rackets, and you actually might hit somebody. Not fun. Not fun at all. Another thing too is also in touch with communication is, let's say you're doing a typical one up, one back scenario. The person at net, if they kind of poach across to the other person's court, but they're running diagonally towards the person at the back, they can't see where the person at the back is, and the person at the back who's chasing the ball might not see the net player either. I know it sounds weird, but it's actually in the perfect blind spot, and this is where people can really get hurt, because a tennis racket's one of the most dangerous things on the racket, on the court. Sometimes when we play tennis and we string the racket too tight, or we have too heavy a racket, that is bad. So be careful. If you string the racket too tight, every time you hit the ball, there's a shock coming through to the elbow. Not cool. If the racket's too heavy for you, also not cool. So if the body and the ligaments and the tendons are not ready for it, it can be quite painful and hurtful. Another thing, shoelaces. There's a reason why people have to tie their shoelaces. Okay, if you tie shoelaces properly, there is more support. When you don't tie shoelaces and they just tuck it in the side, if they can step on a shoelace and trip on a court, there's many possible things. So tying the shoelaces better helps you with support, because the shoes are designed to give you side support on the tennis court, because there's a lot of lateral movement. Now, the incorrect grip on a backhand volley. So some people try a forehand grip, a very strong forehand grip, like a number 3 grip or 4 grip, a western grip or an eastern grip on a backhand volley, and they have a bent elbow when they volley, and all the power, the pain goes to the outside of the elbow, and that is it's tennis elbow waiting to happen. Now, also what's also happened is sometimes when you're serving and you serve too close to the center, sometimes you can hit your partner in the back or in the back of the head or in the back of the legs when you're serving. So please be careful. Stand a little wider, or communicate to your partner that they can stand a little bit out to the court, or they can come up back towards the service line, which will also get them out of harm's way. Sometimes when you hit a forehand and you hit a forehand late, meaning just behind your normal contact point, and your elbow is a bit more bent than usual, that also creates problems because the contact and the shock gets trapped in the elbow, and that goes into the inside of the elbow, and that typically we call golfer's elbow. We're not playing golf, but that's typically what happens. Another thing too, which is quite important, is please do not play tennis in the heat without water or any kind of form of hydration, because you can get dehydrated, and that's not cool, and really bad things can happen. Now, especially in the beginning of the season when there's humidity, people are struggling to breathe, any heart issues, and people who are not ready for it, please be careful. So especially in the beginning of the season, especially the first few days where the temperature really gets hot in the spring, please look out for all these players. It's not cool when somebody gets injured because they didn't have enough water or hydrated enough. Conversely, if you play tennis on a wet tennis court, that is, I'm a tennis coach, and we do not give lessons on a wet tennis court. Once a court gets wet, the court becomes slick. You can slip so quickly. So anybody running on a wet tennis court is such a high risk. Please don't ever do it. It's just broken something gonna happen soon. Another thing too is sometimes these outside courts have cracks on it because of lack of maintenance, and that is an opportunity for your foot to get stuck in it. Another thing too is on clay courts, in the change of season when there's a few freeze thaw, a few times where the courts maybe got frozen in the middle of the night, or sometimes they do the hard true courts too early and it freezes a bit. When the ground freezes and these nails are used to keep the lines down, it actually pushes some of the nails up, so the nails get popped up a bit. So the nails need to get put back down. So just inspect the court, make sure there's no high spots, make sure nails are not propping up, because that's also a dangerous part. Also, sometimes when people brush the lines on the clay courts, there seems to be a ridge around, so there's a little mound around the line. Just be careful of that. So just make sure if there's anything wrong with the court and you have a maintenance staff, just let them know, because they need, it's good feedback for them. You don't have to be upset with them, just let them know there's a cause for concern on this court. I know there's a lot of cool sneakers out there, like Vans, like Converse, which are like the canvas. They look really cool and they can be very expensive, but let me tell you, there's no support for lateral movement. And I have had a client who've actually injured himself through breaking his foot, a bone in his foot, through not having the correct sneaker on, because when he got home his foot was just black and it is just awful, and he was out of tennis for quite a few months, almost a half a year. So please be careful, wear the correct sneakers. So all of this, there's a small little write. Of course there's more, and I'd love to add to the list, so if anybody can just text me or email me and let me know if there's anything more I can say. But I hope this list has been helpful. Please avoid these kind of situations, and I'll speak to you soon. Carl Richards signing out.